Hello there, guys. Welcome back to my channel to a live reaction and live analysis of Chelsea 1, Djurgardens IF, as they are officially called, 0. And Chelsea are through to the final of the UEFA Conference League. Now, I know Lewis likes to call it the UCL because, you know, it's still officially the abbreviation. I wish. It is not quite that, but thank you, everybody that has come over from Lewis's watch along. Shout out, everybody. Shout out, Lewis. If you're here, hit the likes, hit the thumbs up button, and subscribe. That would be massively appreciated. But yeah, we're through, which is nice, which is the main thing. Dimitar, first of all, thank you for joining me. It's the main thing, right? It was the minimum expectation going into the season. We were like the very minimum. Well, to be honest, we haven't achieved that yet. The very minimum is winning the Conference League, not qualifying for the final. But here we are. This is the best we could have done so far. And we did make it happen. We broke all sorts of records in terms of goal scoring records in the competition. And honestly, we didn't once put out close to our best 11. As we shouldn't have, let's be honest, as we shouldn't have. I think the closest to it was probably the Copenhagen away game. That was probably the strongest team that we turned out with in the Conference League. But yeah, at the end of the day, 5-1 on aggregates. Honestly, I don't think it mattered whether it was Djurgardens or Rapid Vienna. Honestly, I don't think it really matters whether it's Real Betis or Fiorentina in the final. But hey, we're through. So, Dimitar, share your thoughts with me. What did you make of that kind of game tonight? It was always going to be a bit, let's call it dull after being 1-0 up. Oh, sorry, 4-1 up from the first leg. And also, I think having the experience of the last tie, where we did have that clear away win, but then kind of messed it up at home, even though we went through no problem. Oh, Betis scored. Currently, they're in extra time, so currently we'd be playing Betis in the final. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I think the fact that we did lose that Legia Warsaw game made sure we didn't today. So therefore, the game was always going to be a bit, well, we weren't going to take huge risks. We were going to keep it simple. We were either going to take a silly draw, an easy 0-0 draw, or score a couple of goals, I guess. And in the end, we did. As much as I criticize him, Dewsbury-Hall, he did get himself a couple of goals in the competition.
Yeah. Today's goal was also nice. And yeah, to your point, I think you are basically right. The level of opposition has not been great thus far, even though I probably think that Legia Warsaw is a better team than Djurgardens, which we played today, and probably maybe better than Rapid Vienna. I think, yeah, up until now, we have not been tested, which is kind of what you would expect in this competition, to be honest. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting in the final. I also expect us to win, but I would say that both Fiorentina and Real Betis are probably the other best sides in the competition apart from us, and they also have some good managers. So the final is gonna be definitely more interesting than the last few games. That I am sure of.
Yeah, no, honestly, and Anthony scored an absolute worldie again.
Yeah. Also last week, I think on the weekend, he also scored an amazing goal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he really did score an amazing goal on the weekend as well. I mean, the thing that I always have in mind where people talk about, yeah, but they are much better than the teams we've played against. And I understand that we've had a few issues, right, in some of the games, and we didn't always batter everyone. Like, you know, Legia Warsaw at home and the Copenhagen games were arguably a bit tighter than we would have liked as well. But let's not ignore the fact that in the final, we will turn out with our best team. And we've not, like I said, played anywhere near our best team yet. That's why I'm like, I don't really care who we play if we don't win by at least 2 goals where we haven't done good enough. Now, obviously, it's about winning, but we should batter them all. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme.
Yeah, we should.
But obviously, football is not a game of should. So we need to get the job done and make sure we don't embarrass ourselves. Because, like I say, it was the minimum expectation from the beginning of the season. So obviously, we'll look at the game in a second. It wasn't the most exciting game, guys. So we'll talk more of a broader perspective on the Conference League for a little bit. Again, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, talk to us in the chat if you have individuals to talk about, like Joffrey talking about Achepong being very good. Talin also saying Walsh was also good. Yes, absolutely. We have to touch on him as well. Dylan with his usual weekly question, who was your man of the match in the first minute of the stream? Mate, let me figure it out first. But there you go. Well, what did you make of the Conference League? Now that we're, you know, past the normal stages, now we're into the final. Honestly, as much as it's good for us and we're probably going to win a trophy here and it's good for the development of our young players, there needs to be some sort of rule that I don't know, some sort of income rule or something that clubs like us don't play in this competition, because it kind of ruins the competition, if we're being totally honest.
Yeah, well, this is a general problem, I think, for European competitions. If you look at the broader picture, even let's say teams from Spain, if you compare the budget of let's say Seville or Athletic Bilbao, even to a random team from Austria, from Poland, from Turkey, these big leagues, it's non-comparable. But in the general sense, I think I have a bit of different perspective, because the Conference League is basically the only tournament in which Bulgarian club football teams can participate currently, and I think the addition of this tournament was a good idea. The problem is that at the end of the day, always a team from the rich countries will win it, and I think West Ham won it, and then who won it last year? I forgot already. Roma won it one time. West Ham.
Actually.
Yeah, Olympiacos. Okay, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, most of the times I guess it will be won by a rich team from one of the top 5 leagues. But at the end of the day, I found it a bit refreshing, because I also think this goes for the Europa League, that even the teams from the Premier League can play a bit more freely, because the Premier League can sometimes be more rigid. It's more tactical. It's more, you have to be better set up. One mistake can cost you the game. You have to be very pragmatic. And here, even if you look at some Tottenham and Manchester United games, they played more freely and they were able to express themselves more, because it's a different type of challenge than the Premier League. Because in the Premier League, sometimes you really can get, how to say it, you are forced.
Is that what you're trying to
Yeah,
say?
it's tight. Yeah, it's tight. Yeah,
in the game.
Yeah, exactly. And here, because if someone had told you at the beginning of the season that teams who are 16th or 15th in the Premier League can reach the final of this competition, you would say no way, because normally you have teams like Bournemouth there, like Luton, like these teams, and those teams would never be able to reach a final of the Europa League, even if they played in it. But when you look at it, Manchester United and Tottenham, because they were able to play more freely, I think they got this far in the competition, and I think the same goes for us. I think we were able to play our B side most of the time, and they also had the freedom to express themselves a lot more. And we saw also, I think, the first flashes of Tariq George's talent in the Conference League, because he was able to express himself more. Because in the Premier League, apart from that equalizer, which did like 2 or 3 weeks ago, he always came in for a very small amount of minutes, and he always had to play the specific position, and he didn't have a lot of freedom to express himself. So I think for us, yeah, like you said, the chance to play our youth has been the best thing for us, apart from possibly winning a trophy, of course.
Yeah, no, that is valid. I mean, honestly, I think even we had too many kind of like senior players in the team, so we couldn't even use enough youngsters, in my opinion. Like, obviously, yeah. Reggie Walsh playing today is great, but think back to the group stages, like league phase, as it's nowadays called. You just had Madueke, João Felix, and Kunku. Like, you had those lot playing. You know, you didn't have time.
But they needed it. They needed it, in my opinion, because if you think about it this way, when we were playing these pub teams on the week in this competition, then we were also performing better in the Premier League. Once in December, when these games stopped and we had to play only Premier League games every 3 or 4 days, then it's when we started to stutter a little bit in the league. Because when we had the chance...
Don't get me wrong, yeah. I fully agree. All I'm saying is that the level wasn't good enough for our B-string team, but because we had such a high-level B-string team, we couldn't really develop all the 18-year-olds in it. That is kind of...
Yeah, but also...
like, just to clarify my own point, I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with the Conference League being a thing in principle. Like you say, I think for the slightly lesser clubs, I think it's a fantastic opportunity, first of all, to be in Europe, for the fans of those clubs to experience following their clubs across Europe. Like, look at Djurgarden today. These guys, these fans in the stadium, whether they were in the home or in the away end, they will have had the best night of their lives, as much as they lost. How often will they follow their team playing at Stamford Bridge? You know, not very often. But I don't even think West Ham counts to this. I know they're a Premier League team, but let's be honest, West Ham were playing in the Championship, 10 years ago? Like, West Ham...
they also lived the dream. Yeah,
exactly. And, you know, like a lot of people will know, West Ham fans, maybe some online creators, you've seen the videos. They were crying their eyes out winning that trophy. And they only had that opportunity because of this third European trophy. But not us. I mean, AS Roma won the first one. You could argue AS Roma just on the cusp where, you know, but us, Man United, I don't know, Atletico Madrid, and Inter Milan or whatever shouldn't be in the Conference League. Even if they finish in that appropriate league qualification position, there should be some sort of rule. If your club has a revenue of so-and-so minimum, then you are not allowed to play Conference League. But at the same time, maybe that ruins it for those smaller clubs because those smaller clubs want that chance to play a team like Chelsea, I guess. But it's just... yeah, it just kind of takes it away because sure, Fiorentina and Betis, they will hope and fight. And I'm sure Djurgarden had their hopes going into this tie as well. But realistically, every single team entering this competition knew Chelsea was going to be in the final. Chelsea was probably going to lift that trophy.
I mean, yeah, you can make that point.
For competition, right?
That's the problem, that the Premier League is just too rich. And also, not only that, but the Premier League is just too rich. And it can happen so, because like in Spain, it can never happen that Real Madrid will finish in the Conference League position. Also in Germany, Bayern Munich will never be 7th or 6th or whatever it is there. But in England, it can very well much happen that Arsenal finish next year 6th, for example, or even Manchester City. They had the real possibility of finishing 6th or 7th if they did not spend 200 million in January. So I know it's just an unfortunate turn of events, I would say. But overall, I would say my opinion of this tournament is mostly positive. And of course, also for us, it's still a trophy. I mean, if we win it, it's going to be great. Because then all the Chelsea fans, they can say that we had a better season than Arsenal. And technically, if we qualify for the Champions League, and if they qualify for the Champions League, we definitely had a better season than them. Because
watch Arsenal fall apart and we finish ahead of them. Imagine.
This would be amazing. I mean, this would be the best. I mean, let's say us winning a European trophy, Tottenham or Manchester United winning a European trophy, and Arsenal finishing 5th would be an amazing end to the season. I have to say, it will be just amazing.
Yeah, Djurgarden, it's a bit harsh. In first year and with academy players who were still levels above them. But yeah, we were levels above them. And like Dimitar said, they were probably worse than Legia. And they were definitely all worse than Copenhagen. Copenhagen was the best team we played in this competition. And for me, the second best team we played was actually Heidenheim. I felt that was the second most difficult game for us. I know we won it 2-0 and it was fairly comfortable, but Jurgensen made some great saves and we scored a couple of worldies in that game as well. So, yeah, it's one of those. I mean, you can... Obviously, I'm not sure how well you guys can see it. I can zoom in more. You can tell everything you need to know about the competition at the fact that I'm sure most of us watching cannot identify every single team by the 3-letter abbreviation here. And the fact that that is the case, that we can't be sure what the 3-letter abbreviation is, tells you everything you need to know about the competition.
I mean, so, I think I could probably name maybe all of them. And before we drew Djurgardden, I had no idea that their logo is DIF.
Both of them, I've got no clue.
Okay, so Jag is Jagiellonia. They are from Poland.
Yeah, I did know that Jagiellonia, but
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. It's insane. Yeah.
Who are you? But I like this how it pops up. It's like
okay, so the left team is a Serbian team. They're from Belgrade.
Which one? This one.
So this TCG who played against Jagiellonia in the previous round, it's called Bačka Topola, and they're from Serbia.
Fair enough. No idea what Chelche? I have no idea how to pronounce them or where they are from. But yeah.
They're from Croatia.
See, that's why I get my Balkan friends involved, so they know where all these teams are. But I didn't even realize Heidenheim were actually against Copenhagen, and they were fairly unlucky. They won 2-1 away and then lost 3-1 at home. So there you go. I'm not even far off in my judgment. But
no, really, I mean, Heidenheim were one of the better teams in this competition for sure. This is, I think,
and they're not good in the Bundesliga, which again tells you everything you need to know. By the way, in terms of your Premier League talking point, what you said earlier, the fact that Manchester United, as shit as they are, on aggregate, beat Athletic Bilbao 7-1.
Yeah, insane.
In La Liga is wild.
No, it's insane. And also a small correction, they're from Slovenia, this team, NK Celje. They're from Slovenia.
There you go. See, well, it's close
But
enough. I don't want to say
close enough, yeah, close
not
enough.
at all the same thing, but close enough. Border each other, I suppose. There you go. I mean, I guess this is something to quickly touch on because they are still, battling it out. It's currently the second half of extra time between Fiorentina and Real Betis. Currently, Real Betis 1 goal ahead, I suppose. Who would you prefer in the final? Do you have a preference? Does it matter to you at all?
The thing is, I'm not sure because for Fiorentina, they already lost 2 finals in a row. And losing 3 finals in a row sounds too much to me. So, and on the other hand, Real Betis have Anthony, who is playing out of his skin currently. So, I'm sure whoever we play, it's going to be a interesting game because they also have good managers. I just realized that Pellegrini is the manager of Fiorentina. And then the Betis manager is the former Barcelona manager. I forgot his name, Ernesto Valverde, maybe, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you must be mistaken because here it says Raffaele Palladino.
No, it says Manuel Pellegrini on the right.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Okay. So I'm mistaken. But, okay, yeah. My bad. But
Pellegrini is right. Pellegrini is
Pellegrini, yeah. Which is
Pellegrini these days? He must be ancient, 71. Still pretty old.
Yeah. But so I'm pretty sure it's going to be a very tough game for sure because also these I think are really the best teams apart from us in the competition. I think Betis are now battling for 5th in Spain, which is UCL football, and Fiorentina are also in the top half of the Italian table. So but I really don't know.
Obviously not awful. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably similar to you. Like if I'm looking at, I don't know, superstitions, I'm like, how many teams lose the same competition a final 3 years in a row? Like not only have they been in 2 Conference League finals already, it was the last 2. First they lost to West Ham, then they lost to Olympiacos, especially against Olympiacos. That must have hurt them because they were definitely favorites going into that purely by name.
For sure.
Capabilities, let's say that. So from that perspective, there is obviously something, the juju that you maybe have to worry about with Fiorentina. With Real Betis, I mean, honestly, bro, if we're worrying about Anthony, I know he's been great at Real Betis. I know he's done a good job. But I don't know, man. I'll need to see him do it against us for me to start being concerned.
The thing is, it's not that I think he's so great, but it's just that football sometimes produces these moments. And can you imagine... Hypothetically, Anthony wins the Conference League against us, and then United lose the Europa League final to Tottenham. Like the headlines are going to be there, and everyone is going to be on Amorim's head for getting rid of him, for example. So I can see this as a scenario.
Your outlook at playing with the scenarios, but please don't even talk things like that into existence. Imagine we lose the final and Spurs win theirs. Now that. I can't be handling that. I might be jumping off a bridge. I can't believe that. But by the way, Dimitar has confirmed that obviously, like I touched on already, Man United winning their semi-final against Bilbao. And Spurs also managed to not slip on their banana peel up in the northern parts of Norway, but also made it through. So it's an all-English European or Europa League final like it was in 2019. This time it's Spurs against United. I'm not sure if I've ever rooted for Man United before. Because even when Man United say play Spurs in the league, right?
You just don't care.
I hope for a draw, probably, because I don't want either of them to win. But in a final, well, I'd definitely rather United win it than Spurs, that's for sure. But then again, you have Mason Mount and United being in the Champions League after how shit they are.
Well, one of them is going to be in the Champions League. So, I mean, one of them is going to be there. So, yeah.
Oh, the Betis keeper is injured, is he? Fair enough. Well,
yeah, he's laying on the ground crying a bit. So, let's see. Oh, there are
sure he's not
Their reserve goalkeeper is Adrian, who was from Liverpool. Okay, interesting. Yeah,
but are we sure he's not just time wasting because it's extra time and they're winning?
possible. I mean, you never know, especially in the 111th minute. You can never know. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, yeah, there you go. Let's focus on tonight's game just for a little bit. Let's look at that one. Obviously, we won the tie tonight, 1-0. A nice goal by Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, set up by, I think it was Tyreek George. A good finish, a nice little run. We could have scored a couple more. Tyreek George had one that was offside anyway, but I don't know how on earth he missed. Dewsbury-Hall had another that he should have scored, to be honest, again set up by Tyreek George. But otherwise, there really wasn't much happening in terms of chances on both ends, really. I mean, the closest that Djurgarden got to scoring and forced a good save by Jørgensen also ended up being offside, so that wouldn't have counted either. So really, everything that happened in this game, other than our goal, was offside and didn't count, and everything else was just nothingness. Honestly, the cameras felt like they showed the Djurgarden fans more than they showed the pitch. So but at the same time, I'm not too upset about a game like this. Again, we're going into it 4-1 up. We had the kind of the issue of, the Legia Warsaw one. I'd rather we have a clean 1-0 win than mess about and have a silly 2-1.
Oh yeah, of course.
And in the end, I mean, we had more XG, we had more possession, we had more shots. Look at the momentum. They didn't even have a momentum, really. So I'll take it. I mean, when we look at the lineup, it tells you everything you need to know. Mr. Reggie Walsh doesn't even have a picture. Also, he's 16, not 17. But I'm very sure that he's 16. Unless every single person I've had speak about Reggie Walsh in the last week has lied about.
I mean, 16 or 17, it doesn't make a lot of a difference for me.
No, he is 16. He only turned 16 in October. So, he's very clearly 16. But yes, he started, obviously made his debut last week. Now got his first start as well. He's had a good week, so big ups him. Tyreek George, in terms of academy, and Josh Achampong, not remotely accurate how the formation really shaped out, especially in the first half. But it was essentially Gusto just played the right mid role, but then we shifted more for the second half. What did you make of the lineup? Was this about what you expected? Would you have hoped it to be even weaker? Would you have hoped?
I had actually no idea what we were gonna play. I also, like you, probably did not expect Cucurella to start. This is probably my only surprise, and I think you mentioned it also in our chat. This was a little bit of a surprise for me, especially seeing basically him, Gusto, James, and Achampong at the same time on the pitch, which is like, very interesting. I mean, we know that they play in midfield most of the time, especially James and Cucurella, but still having like your 4 right/left back players at the same time is interesting, to say the least. But I think they did well, and I think that we looked very sharp. And like I said, the players looked like also there was no pressure, and they had a little bit more of a freedom to express themselves. Or the manager is trying to implement some position switches, because I think for some periods of the game, players tried to switch positions, and I think it kind of worked. Even though, like we said, the opposition is not of the best quality, I think we were relatively, fluid in attack. Yeah, relatively fluid in attack, considering the players on the pitch, I would say, and which I liked, to be honest.
Which players did you notice changing positions?
I think so. Dewsbury-Hall, and maybe not a change of position, but Dewsbury-Hall very often drifted in front of Reggie Walsh. And also the goal happened in the central position, where the right side, I think Gusto and James were basically on that half space on the right. And then Dewsbury-Hall just went through the middle and waltzed past a couple of defenders, which I also liked. Which, maybe this is not specifically a position swap, but basically an overload of a position, which I think we also sometimes try to do in the league, but there it's more different, because when you have Enzo as the effective CAM or Palmer, it's a bit different there. But I also think that on a couple of occasions, Sancho and George maybe tried to switch up a little bit, to have Sancho as the most progressive players and George running from the left, which is also his natural position, which I also kind of liked at moments. But it really felt fluid. It felt fluid to me, which was surprising, because most of these players probably never even thought they would be playing it with each other this season in an official game.
Probably not. The only thing, I mean, it's a good point that we had Reece James, Cucurella, Achimpong, and Gusto all in the team. Gusto obviously playing it as the right mid. He wasn't the right back tracking back, by the way. He was just
very far up the pitch.
Yeah, because we obviously were resting Palmer and Madueke and Neto and Enzo and all these guys, and because of Mudrik's ban and injuries and and Kunku, is he unavailable? Is he silly? Trying to not work anymore? I don't know what he's doing, but he's certainly not involved. But yeah, Cucurella was the one that really, really, really bothered me. Like, obviously it worked out. He was subbed off in the end. It didn't really matter. It doesn't look like he got injured or anything. But the fact that we've got Newcastle on Sunday and it is so pivotal, and I think Cucurella is one of the 3-4 most pivotal players to our success in that game.
Yeah, especially for Newcastle.
I know that we don't have any other options, but I don't know, man. Figure it out. Like, do something. I don't care. Like, I don't know. Like, is there really not? Like, could you have not started Antwi and played Gusto in defense?
Or even Chalaba on the right and just played Gusto in midfield. So, I mean, this team.
I guess Chalaba, you get to a similar argument as with Cucurella. Obviously, he's not as important, but he will also start on Sunday. So from that perspective, but yeah, Mason Mount scored 2 goals today. I mean, United fans loving Mount right now. He better not play good against us. He will probably. Tim says Laurenz is written in the stars. Mount gets a goal against us. If he gets a goal and we win 3-1, not bothered. So have that goal. But no, well, obviously I don't actually want him to score in an ideal world. But Max says we must beat United and Forest and Newcastle. Oh, he doesn't even. We must beat United and Forest and Newcastle. Results doesn't matter. We qualify for Champions League, beat Newcastle, and maybe we still miss out. Well, I didn't really fully understand this message, if I'm honest, Max.
I think the only way we can miss out for sure is if we lose to both Newcastle and Forest. I think if we manage to beat one of them, this should be technically enough to guarantee that we finish in the top.
I think if we win on Sunday, I think we're already done. Like, not no, but I think in reality we will be. And there's not, if we get a draw against Newcastle and Forest, that's also fine. We don't even need to beat either. We just can't lose, especially Forest. But
the only problem will come if we basically don't win any game until the end of the season. Then it could be a bit tricky, but hopefully we will win at least one.
That will be an issue. That will be an issue. But at the same time, it could also easily be enough. 3 draws could be enough. Easily.
Yeah.
Because we're head-to-head in the Champions League quali race with Newcastle and with Forest. And with Forest's form and Newcastle also playing some other good teams still.
Newcastle have to play Arsenal, I believe, as well.
Definitely Arsenal. I'm not sure who their other team is, if I'm being honest. But, I mean, Tim says, do you trust us at St. James's Park? It is a graveyard for us. I absolutely do not trust us at St. James's Park. It's also at 12 o'clock UK time, like midday. It's ridiculous.
Is it at 12 o'clock on Sunday? I didn't know these games even exist. What is it?
1 p.m. our time. Obviously, Dimitar living in Munich, me living in Austria. It's 1 p.m. our time. It's wild. Like, obviously, it was supposed to be the early kickoff on Saturday, but then they moved it because we got to the Conference League semi-final, and therefore you can't play Thursday, Saturday. So then they moved it to Sunday, but instead of doing it like an evening game on Sunday afternoon game, they're like, okay, 12 o'clock. I'm like, all right, then. Fair enough. No, I do not trust us. I don't think we'll win. I have barely any hope that we'll win. But I think there is a chance we get a draw. So, yeah. I mean, the Demon says Newcastle also doesn't play like... It doesn't like playing midday. Do they not? I mean, I don't know the stats for them on that, but...
I think maybe it's just...
the home team, you're much like... You'd probably prefer playing 12 o'clock than as the away team. I would guess.
Maybe also for the fans, because you can't like make an away game at Newcastle at 9 in the evening on Sunday. I mean, that would be disgraceful for the away fans, I guess.
Yeah, but good luck making it at 12 o'clock midday. You know when you have to leave in London. You haven't slept.
Well, I mean,
I guess traveling fans use white powder.
I guess traveling from London,
the TV companies for setting the TV schedules.
I guess traveling from London to Newcastle would never be optimal, no matter when the game is.
Yeah, absolutely. If we do beat Newcastle, we can't believe job is done. I mean, I agree with that. But personally, I think the others will drop enough points that purely beating Newcastle and then therefore being ahead of Newcastle will be enough, I think. But again, I could be wrong. That's how that one goes. Now, let me quickly shape it up. This was our first half 11 at halftime. We took off Marco Correa for. Let me actually write it as the sub for Madueke, or as my German commentator called him, Moika, which I found an interesting name. But there you go. So then we shifted things around a little bit. Gusto became the right back. Sancho went over to right wing. George went to left wing. Madueke was up front. And then we essentially started playing a bit more of a this one, or Achimpong in midfield next to Reece, whichever really one you want to call it. We made some other subs later on, and then Gusto went to left back. And then I can't even remember who went to right back instead, but it all shifted around again. But this was the halftime sub. I'm not going to paint up all the other subs after, but we certainly switched it around. But honestly, it wasn't amazing either there nor here, if I'm being honest. The guy I want to talk about, the guy I want to pick out, and because FOTMOB doesn't even give me a picture for the kid, I'm going to bring up his Google page. Reggie Walsh.
Does he even have one?
Well, when I Google his name on I just put his name into Google and then whatever comes up.
Yeah, got it.
Like I say, turned 16 on October 20th last year. Obviously, we'll turn 17 on October 20th this year. That's how birthdays work. But I'm impressed. I'm impressed by the guy. It's Madueke. Yeah, but do you know that? Or is that just how English commentators pronounce it? But they have no idea how to pronounce half the name. So what? Do you know what I mean? Who was the other kid that we had who everybody kept pronouncing wrong? I forget now. Doesn't matter.
I mean, their names are very complicated, I have to say.
Yes. Some names are sometimes very complicated. I can't remember. Who was this? Who was this player where there was such debate about how to pronounce it? I mean, honestly, there's people that call Eric Dyer Eric Dier. So, I mean, make of it what you will.
I mean, those people are probably German, if I have to guess.
Honestly, no. Some English people I've heard, they call him Eric Dier. I don't know why. I mean, they're Scouse people, so maybe that's part of it, but I don't know. But yeah, back to Reggie Walsh. Officially, the youngest player to ever feature in a European semi-final. Now, obviously, that's because Chelsea play in the Conference League, and we went to the topic of earlier, how we are way too good for this competition. But he still today became the youngest ever player to play in a European semi-final.
So take that, Lamin Layal. Take that.
Yeah, exactly. What about Oba? Well, but yeah, people got used to Aubameyang's name. Do you know what I mean? But I think that's what you're talking about, the pronunciation of the name. But yeah, I thought, considering he's 16 years old, I was very impressed by Reggie Walsh today. I'm not sure about you. Now, obviously, when he came on last week, he nearly scored with his first touch. Didn't quite happen like that. By the way, Real Betis now confirmed.
Yeah, they just won. Yeah, they just won.
But yeah, I thought Reggie Walsh was really good. He's technically incredible. He reminds me of a slightly more attacking Billy Gilmore. And yes, this is because they have the very same frame. And yes, this is because they have the very same haircut as Billy used to have back then. And also, this is because they're both technically really good, but physically, not as developed. Obviously, he's only 16. Well, where is Reggie Walsh from? What do you reckon? Doesn't it sound like the most English name you've ever had? I guess it could be Welsh. I get maybe that's your point, but he is English. So
yeah, definitely British. Yeah, definitely British for sure.
Yeah. Yes, but I mean, were you impressed by him? I'm not sure if you saw this. Naishi in our group chat was talking about he doesn't like players that young playing, and I'm like, but he clearly held his own. I know Dewsbury-Hall scored, and I don't want to even slag Dewsbury-Hall off. But Reggie Hall looked no worse than Dewsbury. Less experience, but
I was actually very impressed with Dewsbury-Hall. But I think they both played very well, and they were also a huge part of that fluidity because they were very sharp on the ball, I believe. And I know people can say, "Oh, the opposition is not used to high-speed football," but I think both of them were very, very responsible and very sharp when they had to carry the ball from the middle of the pitch into the final third. And they also both looked dangerous, even though the game itself was nothing special. I think the most dangerous parts from our play, or at least the first 55-60 minutes, where we had the original structure, came from either from Reggie Walsh or from something that Dewsbury-Hall, which I think they played well. for sure. And I can see why people.
Like I say, I wasn't even trying to slag Dewsbury-Hall.
No,
It's more
no.
credit for Reggie Walsh that he didn't look a worse player. Like,
for
yes,
sure,
short
for
a
sure.
little bit, but in the grand scheme of things, and like I say, in particular, technically the touch and the way he moved, again, just reminded me of Billy Gilmore a lot. Now, does this mean now Reggie Walsh will have a long-time future at Chelsea? Honestly, probably not. Honestly, probably means in about 2 years he will get sold for what? Let's guess, 17 million pure profit. But maybe to like, I don't know, Everton or Napoli or something weird. Something strange will come out of it. But
yeah,
my love, we need to chat about something that the chat really wants to hear from us. Dimitar, we need to discuss who was the man of the match because that's all they keep asking about. Is it Dewsbury-Hall because he scored?
I would say for me probably yeah. I mean, I also like Tariq George because he's showing to me that he's starting to find positions in the box where he looks very dangerous, either running in from the left wing or being more centrally. Of course, that miss was a bit embarrassing, which was offside today. But I'm also very so. If I have to say Dewsbury-Hall best player for me, and then close second both Reggie Walsh and Tariq George. Tariq George has been impressing me consistently in the last few games, and I think it would be beneficial for us to try and fit him in somehow in next season so he can get a bit more minutes. And I know if we make Champions League, that's not going to be the easiest thing, but also we will play some dead teams in there as well. And he should be getting some minutes next season, I think.
I mean, he's too young to go on loan, so he'll be in the under 18s anyway.
Probably, yeah.
We can get him minutes somewhere. I think he's even allowed to go on loan. I mean, he's still in school. He's literally got school tomorrow. He can't just go on loan. So I'm not sure if that's how it works. I actually agree with Mazza here. I'd probably go for Josh Achimpong. Now, do I think he was necessarily like, man of the match is always like, what do you make of that? Obviously, Dewsbury-Hall is the guy that won us the game. So purely from that perspective, he got the decisive goal. But I think in terms of having the most moments in the game where I'm like, you just did something good, I felt that was Josh Achimpong. The way he like ran around players, the way he dragged the ball, carried the ball across midfield. Also got himself involved in attacking positions, more so in the first half when he was playing off the left rather than in the second half when he was on the right and a bit deeper, which is interesting because he is a trained right back and centre back who was playing advanced left back and somehow was really good at it, which is partly why I'm impressed and partly why I'm picking him. Because yes, we're talking about Reggie Walsh being 16. Josh Achimpong, don't tell me you're 19. 19. I thought he was 18, but there you go. When did you turn 19?
I think when he signed the contract
3 days ago. That's fine.
Oh, 3 days ago. Okay.
That is fine. So essentially 18 in my head. For an 18-year-old to be a right back or centre back, to play left back and midfield, and at least be worth mentioning in the conversation about best player of the day, is very impressive. Now, again, lesser oppositions, I know, but I think, it's very difficult when you have someone like him where it's like, you're 19 now, you'd probably benefit more from going on loan. But really, I want us to use Josh Achimpong next season, if I'm being honest. But it obviously depends on who we're going to sign. But I feel like all the players we're going to end up signing are probably not going to be any better than him anyway. So we might as well just play him.
That is true. That is true. But I think that we need to sign a left back, which if they sign a left back, I'm pretty sure they will try to send him on loan. But if we try and use maybe Gusto as a deputy left back next season, maybe we can keep Achimpong in that sort of a scenario. But I'm not
sure. We're going to sign a left back. Like we're seemingly very heavily linked to Hato, obviously the Ajax left back, right? So will it happen? Will it not? Obviously, only time will tell. But I think they will sign some sort of deputy left back to Cucurella. But I think because Fofana will leave, and because I see a chance of Gusto leaving, I think Achimpong could end up being like the backup right centre back, backup right back going into the season, like third choice kind of for both.
Yeah. That's why I said potentially if Gusto goes and plays on the left, then you just leave Achimpong on the right. But I'm not sure. I think Gusto and Fofana will be let both go. Or at least that's not what I would do, but maybe you're right. Maybe there is a chance. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just because you've got Achimpong there. Gusto didn't have a good season. If you get an offer, it's worth considering, I guess. But then what if you get an offer for Achimpong? Do you consider that? I would not, but Chelsea might. So,
I mean,
but even,
it also
even from
depends.
a profit perspective, I would say don't do that. Wait 2 years. You'll sell him for way more.
Also, it depends on a potential loan possibility. Because, like, let's say hypothetically, Coventry get promoted with Lampard. Like, sending him there and being battered every week would not be a great thing for him, I would say. So it also depends.
It would still be a good thing for a couple others. Like, he's too good for that. But I'm sure we could fight like maybe Muka or maybe like Raksaki.
Well, you know
like
what?
That. If Frank wants some, have some.
Yeah, but you know what? I had this conversation with a couple of friends the other day. I think the loans we did previously were better because we loaned out players to the best teams in the championship. And now what we do in the last 2 years is we loan the players to the worst team in the Premier League. And I think this is not the best thing, because if you remember, when we sent Billy Gilmore to Norwich, we almost ruined his career. We sent Ugu to Southampton this year. He didn't do that badly, but I think he would have profited more as a player from, let's say, playing for Leeds every week. Hypothetically, I mean.
For sure. No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. It's a really interesting debate. Now, if it's obviously your example was Lampard with Coventry, if you got up, but because of how dramatic the gap currently is between the promoted teams and even the other bad Premier League teams, if you could find a bad Premier League team loan that isn't one of the promoted sides, you're probably fine. You know what I mean? Obviously, I think Leeds, because of stature of club, having the Red Bull support, having a lot of financial abilities, I think Leeds could potentially manage to stay up. I very much doubt it for Burnley. I very much doubt it for whoever wins the playoffs. But at the same time, if you get the opportunity for a Premier League loan, it's still better than...
This is true, but I was more...
something. You know what I mean?
I was more meaning to it. So, like, in the championship, if you play for a top championship team, let's say you're going to win 20 to 30 games a year. And in sports, whatever anyone says, winning is very important. And winning builds up confidence. Because, like, if you remember when Mason Mount came from Derby, when Tammy Abraham came from successful loans at Bristol and Aston Villa in the championship, like, if you're used to winning and scoring goals and contributing, it's one thing. And if you're used to, like, losing every week, it's a whole different story. That was my point. And I know you're right, Premier League experience is Premier League experience, but still. Yeah, I would personally
the only thing you could argue, I mean, we've got a bit better now, but remember, like the Potter days, maybe losing every game is good experience for Chelsea too.
I mean,
yeah. But by the way, the Demonin said we sent Santos to Forest when they signed 3 midfielders that same summer. You are partially correct. The only caveat in terms of it was Forest that fucked us over here. It wasn't Chelsea being stupid. Chelsea sent him on loan there, and then after that, they decided to sign 3 more.
That was that mad summer when they signed like 20 players or something like that.
Yeah. And to be fair to them, I know they're now bottling Champions League, but clearly this is what these smaller clubs need to do: invest heavily, and that's how you manage to survive and keep yourself potentially play in Europe. You're not gonna. To be fair, Ipswich spent millions, and they got nowhere near staying.
Forest also got lucky. I think they got Elanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi very cheap, and they had the money, let's say, to spend 50 million on Gibbs White. So if they had to pay, let's say, 40 for Hudson-Odoi, 50 for Elanga, they would not be able to afford them. So they also got a bit lucky. But
getting Chris Wood was good for them, but also the way he worked for them was very good as well. But obviously their centre backs, Murillo especially, he's phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Ola Aina had an unbelievable season for them. He's a brilliant player. But yeah, there you go. Let's not talk too much about Forest. Honestly, bro, I'm not really sure what much more I have to say about today. I want to say Reece James got into the game, but in the first 15 minutes of the game, he pissed me the fuck off. He kept giving the ball away. And there was one moment he literally lost it himself. And then they were counterattacking, and I see him walking back. Everybody's sprinting. And I see Reece James walking, and that's when I said in our group chat, I'm like, if you're not,
I remember this. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
There was a moment 10 minutes later in the game, Cucurella gave the ball away. He head down, sprints back, wins the ball back. What did I see Mr. Captain do? Walk. Like, this is already bad for any player, but the captain doing that is a big problem, a big problem. And honestly, we should sign Zlatan Ibrahimovic to slap our players when they don't behave properly. Like, this is ridiculous behavior. You cannot be doing that as a captain. You are not Eden Hazard. You're not Eden Hazard. You couldn't even complete that misplaced pass he had, by the way, as well. I know he only misplaced 4 in total, but he still pissed me off. But then as the game got on, he got better and better. And to be fair, he got 3 out of 4 dribbles, 2 out of 3 crosses, 5 out of 5.
He actually looked good in the end of the first half. I think we had total complete control of the game, and he looked comfortable at the tempo of this game. At the Premier League tempo, he looks a bit lost on at certain moments, but I have the hope that in the summer, if he can stay fit through the whole summer preparation schedule.
Honestly, I know he's captain, so this will not happen, but I think there's a real case to be made to not take him to the Club World Cup and let him fully prepare for the league season.
Okay, I see that. Yep, I see this case. Yep, this sounds logical.
Obviously, they won't do it as captain, but you could.
I mean, before Cole Palmer played the great game against Liverpool, I would also have said the same for him. Just send him to rest because he did not look great for the past few months.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's a bit unfortunate that Thomas Tuchel doesn't, seem to care about the Club World Cup and essentially suggest that he will pick the normal 11, because if at least Palmer wouldn't go to England and would have like 2 weeks off before the Club World Cup, that would already help. But yeah, also Tallinn in the chat, shout out you. He or she, let's call you they, are really adamant in talking about Jurgensen. They were mentioned earlier as well, Jurgensen for second man of the match because the saves, and I think the main man of the match should be Cucu or Josh. I'm not sure about Cucurella, he only played the first half. But I mean, yeah, he made 3 saves. Obviously, I touched on this earlier, the best save he made ended up being offside, so it didn't actually count as either a save or XG prevented. I guess he was good, but I mean, I don't think you can mention a goalkeeper as second man of the match when the opposition had 3 shots on target, 0 big chances, and a total XG of 0.5. I'm not giving the goalie man of the match or second man of the match on that, but he did good. He did good.
Yeah, that save you mentioned was great for sure, but yeah, he just didn't have any work. I mean, it's like
exactly. I mean, where do you stand on the goalies anyway? Are you but who do you want to set?
Increasingly depressed watching the Champions League and the level of goalkeeping there, because like we are the semifinals were probably, at least the Inter Milan versus Barcelona was probably the best semifinal I have probably ever seen. And the level of goalkeeping, I mean, they scored something like 13 or 14 goals, and you can pick out probably 5 or 6 world-class saves from those 2 games easily. So our goalkeepers, they're the ones we have now, clearly not good enough. Petrovic is the only one I think who could be good enough for a top 4, top 5 Champions League side. I'm not sure about title-winning goalkeeper, but he's definitely the best of the bunch.
You have to give him the chance, I think. I think he's done well on goal.
For sure. But I mean,
and if you don't give him the chance now,
we give him the chance, but I just wanted to say
go on loan. They're like, no, because you don't care about doing well on loan. Yeah, it's depressing when you know that Inter Milan signed Jan Sommer for 5 million, isn't it?
Not only that, I mean, even Donnarumma, sometimes he has his ups and downs, but when he's on form, oh my God, he's just like, he's insane.
Yeah, I don't like Donnarumma in the sense that he, first of all, is inconsistent, but I think for us, whether it's how we play, but I think for the Premier League, for how many high there are,
I just mean on pure goalkeeping skills. Sometimes he's probably one of those keepers who can make probably the hardest save in the world and then bottle an easy goal in the next game.
Yeah.
He has
Donnarumma 20 years ago would have been consistently the best goalie in the world. But because nowadays a goalie has to use his feet, he's not. But he's a bit like De Gea, really. Unbelievable on his line, sometimes a howler, but in principle, unbelievable on his line, but not good with his feet. I see a lot of similarities between Donnarumma and
I could also say he's probably a bit even a bit better than De Gea on his line. He's just like some of those.
I agree. Especially that save over the top from Saka. It's outrageous.
And that save
Donnarumma was
against
expensive.
Odegaard,
Right?
the save against Odegaard in the first 10 minutes. Oh my God. This is like...
Yeah. But obviously he was expensive, right? They bought him for what, 50 million, 60 million back then?
No, I know, but... Oh no.
Could supposedly be potentially available now. Still seems too risky for me, but Jan Sommer for 5 million, that is a non-risk. You know, that's the kind of signing you should have made. Would Jan Sommer, if we had him, would half the fan base said he's too small because we conceded a couple of long shots? Probably. Purely because when they Googled him and they said, seen he's about the same height as Kepa, they would have hated him already and booed him on the first day. So probably shouldn't have signed him from that perspective. But look at it. He's fucking outrageous.
Oh no, Jan Sommer is a phenomenal goalkeeper. I mean,
always has been.
Yeah. He was criminally underrated in Germany. I mean, criminally.
I agree. But yeah, as for our goalies, I would go with Petrovic. And honestly, I did give Jurgensen a chance in the beginning. But first of all, it feels like Chelsea aren't giving him a chance because Sanchez was bad enough that I think if you gave Jurgensen a real chance, you would have kept him in the team for longer than 2 games a couple of months ago. So therefore, I'm like, well, Sanchez is older. He seems to be quite popular in the squad. So I guess make Sanchez the backup goalie and make Petrovic the first one. If Sanchez deals with that, I guess, then that's probably what I do going into next season. Purely because I'd rather the vocal, experienced backup than Jurgensen, who seems a quiet guy.
I have no issue whoever they choose for a backup, but they must choose Petrovic the number 1. We cannot go into next season with Sanchez as a starting number 1. If this happens, the second that we start losing games, it's gonna be mayhem because who could take responsibility in the middle of the season? Let's say
honestly, we need to hire a hitman.
Yeah, I mean,
the question is on who? On Sanchez himself or on the sporting directors?
Yeah, because these people should realize he's not good enough. And yeah, for a backup, I would say for a backup, he's probably barely good enough. But for a starting goalkeeper, it's definitely not what we should have.
And to that's the thing with Sanchez. Sanchez can have a good day, and on his good days, he's a good goalkeeper. But he just makes too many mistakes, and he also is way too. I don't really know. He's like Zlatan Ibrahimovic for a goalkeeper. You know, it's like he does way too much. I remember a couple of goals last season when he was speculating for a far corner shot and he's already jumping before the guy even shot and the guy rolled it into the near corner. I'm like, bro.
It's sometimes it feels like his brain, it feels like his brain is doing some sort of a lag or some sort of computer freeze for a split second, and he changes his decision in the middle of the save, and it just looks insane. And sometimes that does not lead to us conceding a goal, but it just looks comical. And he has loads of those moments also where he doesn't cost us a goal, but he just looks comical.
Yeah, he does. But yeah, Dimitar, I think it's about time we wrap this one up. As final thoughts, I guess we'll bring up this little picture for the Conference League final. Obviously, Anthony, Isco, the two arguably stars players for Real Betis. I guess Parma and Caicedo on our side, you can argue. Obviously, the final is in Wroclaw, which, by the way, just a quick touch. Why did Poland decide to call Wroclaw in English? I don't really understand. It basically sounds the same as Warsaw and spelled the same. So people just get it confused, man. I don't know what it's called in Polish, but in German, there's a completely different name.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, in Polish, it should be Wroclaw. So it's like a double V, but...
To be fair, that makes the German version also very strange.
Yeah. Well, translating from Slavic to German is always tricky, but yeah. Because they try to do basically a 1-for-1 translation like they did with Danzig. So Danzig previously, and now it's called Gdansk, which is also kind of... The names of these cities are weird for sure, but yeah. But it sounds like Warsaw in English for sure.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. There will definitely be a few Chelsea fans that
actually... yeah. They will... They will have to make special signs on the Warsaw airport. Attention, Chelsea fans, the final is not here.
Yes, exactly. exactly.
Just like there's this meme about the bureau at the Vienna airport that it's not Australia.
Yeah, exactly. We do not have kangaroos in Austria.
Yeah.
We would like to, but we do not. The Demonent says, "I'm worried club politics might take over. Petrovic beat out Sanchez last season, and we tried to sell him in the summer, but we couldn't find a buyer, so he stayed. Even if we can't sell him, loan Sanchez out." I mean, I get what you're saying with the club politics, but I think part of the club politics is now the fact that Petrovic was at our sister club. And the sister club is obviously a bit of a point of contention in the fan base and in the bigger scale of football anyway. So therefore, because this now worked, if we now put Petrovic in and he's our first choice goalkeeper, we make a huge case for this is why buying Strasbourg made sense, you know? So that's why I think there's a lot of logic in making Strasbourg Petrovic first choice now, because you can, like, it will be much easier when we go buy another club this summer and then another one the year after that. It will go down a lot better after you've had a few positive experiences with that. So that's why I think
but technically the experience was negative for us because we loaned out the better goalkeeper. So technically.
Yeah, but to be fair, would Petrovic be as good as he is now if he stayed? I reckon no.
But will he be better than Sanchez if he stayed? I think yes.
No, probably yes. But if we qualify
But
for
no,
the
I
Champions League
know, I know what you're saying.
no harm
Yeah.
done. Then nothing changed, I guess. It would have been an
He
easier.
definitely improved. He definitely improved during this loan, and like you said, this is a positive for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, Laurenz, we need to first sign Osimhen and then bring back Petrovic. I think, Tallinn, we need to do everything but sign Osimhen. I know you won't like me thinking that, but I think Osimhen is just Lukaku with the same ego but less quality. So, yeah, I don't really want him anywhere near the club, if I'm being honest. But at least I was already against signing Osimhen last summer. So, you know, I'll give myself that credit at least. And like K-Star Gaming says, Laurenz for Sporting Director. I agree. But actually, I don't agree. Now, first of all, I might not make as silly signings as these lot do sometimes, but cannot be bothered for all of you coming at me throat as soon as I make one bad signing. So, thank you very much. Please no. Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine if you're Todd Bowley, right? And you sign Marco Correa, and everybody's at your case, worst signing ever, shit player. 2 years later, he's one of our best players, and you're like, everybody was sending me death threats 2 years ago about this. So, yeah, as much as we obviously criticize all these people, it is a more difficult job than sometimes people give it credit for. I will say that much. But still, our sport directors are shit. But yeah, we will leave this here. Like I say, to say one last time, Chelsea are through to the final of the UEFA Conference League. We're in a European final, and if we do win it, we will be the first and only club to have truly won it all. And that will be quite cool, because the other clubs that have won it all are very unlikely to ever be in the Conference League anytime soon. So therefore, the likelihood of anyone taking this record away from us is quite slim. So that's why it's kind of a cool record in that sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, for sure. Yep.
So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in once again. If you haven't done that yet, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't done that either. Shout out Dimitar for coming back on. I appreciate you very much, bro. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, on to another European final, and we will see you next time.